Hi, this is Marc McElroy. I'm here at the Electric Cave Recording Studio in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I decided I want to do this little video about music production in general, mostly to help people who don't, maybe younger people, younger than me, people who know how to, who are an artist, who knows how to make a song, who knows how to record a bit, but really trying to get the next step further. Get listened to more, maybe make a little money doing it, that kind of thing. So the best way to explain this is to talk about the 5 roles of the traditional recording process. I'm talking about back in the 70s or 80s or 60s even, how records got made, a lot of those classic records. We're going to talk about 5 of the roles in the studio of different people. First, you have the artist. That's kind of self-explanatory. They're the person who either thought up the song or the performer who's going to perform it, or that. So it's an instrumentalist, singer, songwriter. It used to be, in the old days, the industry was driven by the people at the record labels and the executives, because there weren't enough artists. They go out looking for artists. We've got to find artists. We've got to find the best artists. We've got to pay them money. We got to support them. We got to push them along. Now it's the 21st century. Recording technology is so cheap and available. The internet makes everything all over the world available simultaneously. Their job is diminished significantly. There are artists everywhere, and there are nearly too many artists. So, if that's such a thing, it's changed the relationship. It's changed the nature where the artist was the rare person put up on the pedestal. Now the artist is driving the project. So you're a songwriter, a singer, whatever, you write a song, you have your material. Who's the next person I'll talk about? Let's see. Let's talk about the producer. The producer, that's an easy role to understand. The producer is the person who oversees everything. So in a studio, they work with the artists, the recording engineers, the musicians. They know a little of everything. They may know the fundamentals of arranging or engineering, or how to play the instruments that are being played, and they can advise everyone in the situation, just help them along the way at every turn. Kind of like the director in a movie, where they might look like they're just sitting back, but really they're at the helm in a lot of ways. The recording engineer, that'll be the third role I'll talk about. The recording engineer used to be the person wearing a white coat who was literally an engineer, like playing with knobs and soldering things when they need to be soldered, and plugging things in and unplugging them. That's simplified a lot these days, especially digital recording and home recording and recording on PCs, rather laptops and computers, and oftentimes the role of the producer and the recording engineer have been mixed a little bit. Recording engineers are now producing as well, or giving producers advice to artists, and a lot of times producers have to engineer their own recordings, just because they can't even afford to have the extra person around to do that work, so they can consolidate that. So the next role, let's see, that would be number 4. Let's talk about the A&R person. Now this is the dreaded A&R person. You hear all these stories of how A&R people get it wrong at one time or another. The person sitting in the back of the room saying, "I don't hear a single, and you got to change this, or this. I don't think the label's going to like this." Or sometimes saying, "Great, wonderful job, keep going." They were often the person between the record label and the artist, and they're much maligned, but they actually fulfilled a very important role. That's why I mention them here. That's why I'm talking about this consolidation of roles, where you can't leave this out. They're the practical person. Is this a single? Will this sell? Will people want to listen to it? Is there a hook? Is it too long? Is this getting out of control? All these kind of questions that went to the A&R person. So a person kind of above, who isn't in the day-to-day procedure, who can kind of look on and give advice. And then the fifth role I'm going to talk about is the executive producer. That's the person who signs the check. That's the person who's putting up the money. And so whether it's actually writing a check to a studio, or it's you buying gear to use in your home studio in order to make recordings, you're still putting something into it. You're the person who takes the risk. So this has to be all these 5 roles. Now in the 21st century are now all up to you, the artist, because like I said, too many artists in the world, not enough money to pay them all. So we're often left. I'm not saying I like this system. I'm old enough to remember the old system, and I preferred it as an artist or as a performer or someone who's in the industry. But we got to face some reality here. The time has come for the artist to take control. There are no record labels running advance checks, so we have to fulfill these duties, or make sure they're fulfilled. So the executive producer, like I said, is the person who writes the check, makes the investment. It's important to make an investment. If you have something to lose, you're more likely to make sure you don't lose it. So an investment can be a powerful motivator for you, the artist. And as the executive producer, you have to make sure you're happy with everything, because you are the person who gets answered to. This makes it a little complicated for other people in the process sometimes, but it's true. If you're putting up the time and the money, you're in charge. Make sure you're able to listen to people, or make sure if you're not good at being in charge, there's someone you can put in charge, but the responsibility is yours. And then producing, and I have a whole other video about some producing tips for artists who self-produce. The A&R role, making sure that things are, I hate to say the word, but marketable. Is there a hook? Is there a market for this? Is there an audience? Now, you can make your art and never have an audience. Or you can never have an audience in your life and hope that someday, like some Emily Dickinson situation will happen, and people will just find your poetry in a desk drawer, and it turns out that you were brilliant. Or like happens to so many painters that only after they're dead do they become really recognized for greatness, and while they're alive they often struggle. And this is fine if that's what you want. If you want to make art and put it in the world and keep moving, that's entirely your business. It's entirely, I won't even say your business, because it's not business. It's something deeper. It's just you need to create, and you need to do this stuff. Great. But what I'm saying is more from a music industry standard. If you want to make some kind of career that will sustain itself, even a little bit, instead of it being a hole in which you pour money, time, effort, if it becomes, if you can make it become something a little more productive, as far as finding an audience, keeping an audience, giving the audience what they want. Because it's great to be an artist and say, I do whatever I want, but seldom does that line up exactly with what prospective listeners will want. So, and then recording engineer, I think I might talk a bit about that in another video too as well, but learn how to do it. If you're going to be working at home, it's not tough. The basics about EQing, about miking things, you can learn it all in a short span of time. And if you're like, no, I'm not a technical person, I just want to plug in my thing and use it. But when you learn about EQing and sound frequencies, it will help you learn how to make your bass sound big or make something shimmer, to know where that fits on an equalization curve, or how compression works. Everything you hear everywhere is constantly compressed. If you don't know how to use a compressor and you're making contemporary music, you may be in trouble. Now, maybe you have a plugin that does it for you somehow, but they exist. But in my experience, they're not the best alternative. Learn what compression is. Learn what equalization is. Learn some basic engineering skills, and you, as the artist, will be able to reach people better, and it will become. It will help the entire process. It will help each of your roles. This big mess of those 5 roles I'm talking about that you now have to take on as the artist. So, hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, I think I'm going to be talking about songwriting a little bit and or song arranging, pre-production, production. So maybe I'll put some links somewhere so you can get to those videos. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.